For mankind, reality is their believing the presence which their feelings are concerned with. Therefore, since the feelings always change, there is no constant reality. As the comprehensions expand and increase, feelings and realities change and become encompassing, as well. So, the state of the ascending and changing realities from below to above in the conscience mechanism points to the speed of the reaching and advancing of the being towards the plan of duty. This is because realities advance together with comprehension. The more comprehensions increase, the more realities expand and become correspondingly more encompassing. That is, presences with which the feelings are concerned with increase, and the powers of internalizing, absorbing these also increase, and so, higher and further realities are attained. A man, climbing a mountain, can only see a small part of the terrain when he is at the foothill. As he climbs higher and ascends, the terrain unfolding before his eyes widens correspondingly. And when he reaches the summit, then he sees and comprehends the whole scope of the plain. Therefore, as comprehension increases, the scope of realities also increases. Reality is a knowledge at the same time. The things which concern the feelings and of which their presence is believed are sensed and known. Therefore, in the world there is no constant and unchanging, absolute reality for every level and stage. Everybody has his own particular sense and belief. And in accordance with these senses and beliefs, there are different realities with different qualities and scopes. Situations which have not yet entered the reality of the mankind who are at lower levels, can be reality for the ones at the higher level. Similarly, as realities ascend, they also contain the simpler realities of the lower levels. These simple realities, which enter into higher realities, lose their identities by gradually dissolving within their scope. Thus, for example, small details, indentations, rises, ditches, shrubs, small puddles etc. that are seen in a few acres of terrain by man when he is at the foothills, gradually vanish within the wider field of increasingly widening horizons as he ascends to the summit. Nevertheless, they stay within that field as the constituting components, pieces of this whole which occurs. Therefore, as the realities join to each other and widen, it is necessary not to be stuck with the old realities. As long as it is not done, unless we are not willing to abandon the details of the scenery of the few acres seen from the foothills, it is not possible to ascend higher and widen the scenery. And the riches, magnificent sceneries of the wide field that is to be observed from the hills cannot be appreciated. Actually, as long as we are stuck in that narrow, lower place, the need to look for this scenery, these beauties, does not emerge at all. Therefore, in order to ascend, to converge the aim, in short, to take the path of acquiring the required merit and comprehensions necessary for the plan of duty, it is necessary not to be buried within the earthly cravings of the lower levels, and to shake off and abandon their weight. Shaking off and getting rid of realities is not done by arbitrarily discarding a reality. Here, this point should be understood well. A reality's leaving its place to another reality is not an arbitrary thing. It is, above all else, the result of a developmental imperative. This is because, to be able to abandon a reality and to pass into a higher reality, it is necessary to obey all necessities of that reality, to be governing it and to assimilate it thoroughly. That is, the results of that reality should be internalized with all its necessities by the essence being and become the essence knowledge. Otherwise, the real place of a reality, which has not yet assimilated and internalized in the conscience mechanism, is the higher component of that mechanism, after all. For, it is not a lived but to be lived reality, that is, it is not an acquired but a to be acquired reality. Therefore, it is necessary to completely obey its necessities so it can descend to becoming the second plan, the plan of earthly cravings as a lived component. And the state which will determine this is the need. When a man, after living thoroughly in a reality, encounters there the points which start to dissatisfy him and needs to look for the superior one, then the reality he is in becomes a component which needs to fall back to the second plan, which enters a state of earthly cravings. So, in this way, events occurring through struggles are made for shaking off a reality, which is old and which needs to be left behind, and the lessons learnt from these events cause the comprehension to expand, and consequently the evolution of spirit. In this way, realities go on continuously from below to above. That is, the component of any level which is directed to duty constitutes the earthly craving component of a higher reality, and its component directed to earthly cravings constitutes the duty component of a lower reality. Let us repeat that these realities do not follow each other in an unchanging order. They follow each other by changing in accordance with the evolutionary need and comprehension capacity of the person. Let us give an example here. Imagine a level at which manslaughter by vengeance is allowed, and there is a man who believed and accepted the necessity of vengeance by blood feud as a duty in killing a murderer who killed that man's father or relative. That belief is a knowledge, a reality of that level. However, there is such a level of knowledge above it that, what is valid there is the knowledge and judgment of not having desire to revenge someone who has done wrong to him, and this is a situation that requires responsibility and correspondingly, of responding to atrocities always with forgiveness and tolerance. Imagine that what is determined for the man who has lived in the previous reality is to get through his reality, and to pass into the reality of the higher level and, because of this, to come back into the world again. That man, having come into the world, has put all possibilities of struggle in his plan to assist him in getting rid of his old reality. However, he is still under the influence of his old reality. Therefore, when he is back in the world, facing the powerful bonds of the revenge reality of the earthly cravings constituting the negative pole of the conscience mechanism, that man may not converge on the higher reality which suggests forgiveness, tolerance, even love. And he starts to have difficulties in pulling himself through from his old reality of revenge. Because of this, if he remains all alone, he will not move an inch from his place and pass into the higher level. Nevertheless, we have previously said that this situation can never continue like this. And also, we have mentioned the presence of millions of influences which will arrive at the higher opposite from above, and at the lower opposite from below of a duality unit. Besides, there is also his life plan, sketched as he comes into the world, and as how he promised to stay true to this plan in the world. The beings in duty in assisting him around that plan will of course do their duty, as well. Therefore, for the purpose of developing the powers that man needs to reach the higher realities, these helpers will do whatever needs to be done. So, with this help and intervention, that man is uprooted from his old reality, and by jumping to the higher levels knowledge of forgiveness, tolerance and compassion, he gives up his old reality of revenge, manslaughter. In this case, internalizing the higher reality is possible by becoming disentangled from the bonds of the lower reality. As studying the realities regarding the knowledge they concluded in the essence being, it is necessary to remember that they complement each other. In this regard, each reality is the piece of a whole which successively goes to the point that is needed to be reached, by each reality's preparing for a higher reality. And actually, the refining experiences of a human being are but the impressions of these realities, which have accumulated in the essence being as knowledge. That is, as a past reality prepares the future reality, the impression of the past reality remains present as well within the essence knowledge of the future reality. In fact, in this way, future realities widen as they gradually include the conclusions of past realities, and their scope increases, and causes the increase of refining experience of the being. For example, individual earthly cravings, which complete the level where crude self-centeredness reality exists, becomes social selfishness in a higher communal plan reality, with a superior and encompassing character. If at the former level, a man only strives for his individual interests, at the second level he starts to work for the interests of a small community, of a family which depends on him. And this earthly craving, as the levels ascend, increases and widens by encompassing a community, a society, a nation, mankind, and even all beings, and as it orientates towards them, it is necessary to call it consideration of others, not selfishness. Nevertheless, it remains in a state of earthly craving in comparison with a higher reality than itself. This situation indicates the states, which are widening in scope and developing by the gradual feeding of the conclusions of the previous earthly cravings in the essence being, by the conclusions of new elements, that is, the conclusions of the higher opposites. So, a reality of earthly craving which entails efforts to achieve a higher reality by standing against it, at the same time, is in a state of candidature to be mixed within this higher reality and vanish into the higher identities. Therefore, within the most advanced and highest realities syntheses that have turned into essence knowledge, there are the conclusions of the earthly cravings belonging to initial realities, which have adapted to this knowledge and dissolved their initial dispositions within there. Now, we will elaborate upon the problem of how realities prepare mankind for the plan of duty. The part of man that will pass into the plan of duty is not his body with its flesh, bones, and neurons. The body needs to be buried in the earth with all its formations at the end of every world life cycle. However, there is another part of the man, not his body, which advances from his initial human life to the knowledge of duty, which is a superhuman plan, and this is his being, as we have previously explained. That is, what advances throughout the whole universe as gradually developing by using myriad matter, in order to serve the spirit it is subject to is his being. And bodies are only vehicles for this being. Thus, all these realities and all components constituting these realities prepare not the human body but the being, which uses it for the plan of duty. And the meaning of these is that world realities that have evaluated according to the human brain, do not pass into the essence being in the same states and forms. And if this was the case, there would be no necessity for the body and the being could directly live in the world. So, what are the real values of the realities, those evaluated by the human brain, that we see and know in the world, which pass into the essence being and which need to be lived through for its preparation? These values that pass into the being are not the crude states and forms of the realities which have been adjusted to the world matter. These values are some conclusions which these realities bring about in the essence being, as states of sublime and subtle matter combinations, suitable for the subtle structure and the needs of the being. It is even not right to call these impressions. This is because this word does not convey here the complete meaning. So, these conclusions or impressions, whose disposition is very vague to human comprehension, are deep traces that cause the development of beings. And the meaning of the phrase of these traces deepening is the expanding and gradual encompassing of the essence comprehension belonging to that being, and ensuring its evolution. Actually, because the essence comprehension is identical with the being, the expanding and gradual encompassing of comprehension is the development of the being in itself.